Today on the show, I'm talking with Vince about the concept of dying with zero. There is a popular book in the US by the same name, Die with Zero, about basically live your life, spend all the money, die with nothing, have a good time, you're out. Now, I know that's a bit of a broad stroke, but we had a question where someone wanted to know Vince and my thoughts on Die with Zero. The chat then led to the psychology around money and superannuation, because a lot of the time we accrue that much superannuation and it's really hard to work, line in the sand, retire, flick a switch, spend. So this chat that you're going to hear, I actually recorded with Vince on the main show. However, every quarter or so, I do what we call on the Money podcast, a campfire chat. And that's usually a 2.5, 3 hour chat with Vince and myself and maybe someone else, where we just chew the fat, long form, and we just go wherever the conversation goes with no set time. Now, this is an extract of one of our recent campfire chats, and I really wanted to share it because I think it is really relevant to the retiree audience. And you'll see in this that I read an example of someone grappling with the psychology of having all this money and struggling to spend, particularly on financial advice fees. It's a great discussion. I love, getting into the weeds of the psychology around money and spending and all that stuff. But that's what this episode is today. My name's Glen James. Thank you so much for joining us today on Retiree.
This is a podcast that will help you plan and execute one of the biggest moments in your life. That's retirement. You'll learn how to set up your finances in a way that benefits you, your lifestyle goals, and keeps you in the know within this complex world of money and investing. Your host is Glen James, former financial advisor, author, and host of the popular Money podcast. Glen is joined by experts in various fields around the topic of retirement in Australia. Any advice in this podcast is of a general nature. Full details are in the show notes of this episode. You only retire once, so retire right.
All right, Vincent.
Yes, Glen.
I want to talk. Oh, here is an interesting one. Cherie. Cherie said this. Just read Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. Title is not the whole concept, but interested in your and Vince's thoughts on it if you've read it. Now, Vince, you have read this book?
As it happens, I was reading this over Christmas.
Okay.
And I was always intrigued by the title, which I must admit doesn't actually flow through to the book. But it seemed to me to be a bit of a modern take on the old financial planning joke that the undertaker's check should bounce. And it's actually a bit more than that. Of course, we don't write checks anymore. And the government doesn't like dead bodies lying around the street, so they don't actually have to worry about paying the undertaker. But Bill's point that...
Before you get into Bill's point, my point is I have not read this book. And the reason that I have not read this book, and people probably will at me as per, that, it's a money book and you should read it because you're in this world. I don't want to read another money book.
No.
Secondly, my main point, in financial advice land, when I've done modelling for clients and pre-retirees, post-retirees, general financial planning, we always use depleting capital anyway to achieve goals. Yes. It was just this weird FIRE movement where you accrue money and only draw income to preserve capital. And I was never in that world anyway, because to get to that capital anyway to keep, to withdraw the amount is so huge, where it's a lesser amount that you need if you're depleting the capital out.
Yeah. But the hardest point, it's a great concept in theory. The challenge is it's almost impossible to do in practice because we don't know when we're going to die. So the theory or the main message of this book is look at as a lifestyle, an overall life, focus on experiences, do it early, invest early, and don't obsess about not spending your retirement nest egg. Most retirees that I see in my practice and have seen over the decades, most retirees struggle with spending money.
Well, you work 40 years having the goal of saving and then overnight being told you need to spend the money.
That's right. To go from spending bad, saving good to spending good, just not too much, is a really big mental switch. And we're not good as humans at spending the capital. So we're happy to eat the fruit, but we don't feel too good about trimming the tree.
Case in point, I'm going to do a case study on this in our Retire Right podcast. I had a gentleman write in for some financial advice, and I get it. Like I get it more than anyone. He wrote, we've been retired for 3 years and we've just been living, we own our house and we're living off our term deposits. $1 million of term deposits, okay? We also have $800,000 in super.
Which, let me guess, is still an accumulation.
Correct. We want, now that we've just ticked over 60, we want to, listen to the podcast, love the podcast. Yep, okay, 60 is a good age, count-based pensions and all that. We can't put it all in one go, so there needs to be a 3-year type strategy and all this stuff. And he wrote and said, look, I was quoted an exorbitant amount of money for the financial advice. And basically, I might bring it up because it speaks to the psychology of save, and then now spend some money.
Yeah. Like that license to spend is critical.
But this is the wild thing. I'm actually going to get. I'll read you what I wrote him because it was just. I honestly spent the time, and I rarely do this with financial advice leads. I'm going to read what I wrote to him. Mm-hmm. This is fascinating. It's just fascinating. Thanks for reaching out. Also, thanks for listening to the show. Can I ask what the fee per month was that you were quoted? Because he said there was an absorbent amount of advice fees that you were quoted before I introduced you to an advice business. I have several advice businesses that I refer people to, and for your case, I wanted a little bit more color. The issue is advice is not a once-off event, particularly when you're around such sweet spot ages with yearly caps, creating pensions, etc. The reason, have one of them. The reason many advice businesses would want you to engage with them for the whole time of implementation would be for around the pension. For example, if you need to add money into a pension, you need to either start a new pension or refresh the current one. I know no one thinks it would happen to them, but the amount of emails that I get where people wanted once-off advice, then they run along and implement it over the years with errors made that could have been undone, that couldn't be undone is staggering. Usually the cost of mistakes are more than the costs of the advice. Another thing is with advice, if an advisor makes an error with paperwork, and it can happen in life, you're protected. Like if you accidentally, as an advisor, tick the wrong box on a super fund and it's cost the client, there's PI, don't worry about that. I'm not talking about systemic shield mass trust and all that crap. I'm talking just general errors. An advice business will sort that.
Yeah. You buy 1,000 BHP instead of 100.
That's right. Yeah. Another reason is the compliance and paperwork required when a business engages with a client for ad hoc advice. It's too messy and often costs more as an advisor. As an advisor needs to be confident for the compliance record that the situation has not changed. If there is an ongoing client, they can prove that the advisor knows their client and the current situation has not changed. If there is a changing situation or the situation is not known, even if they got once-off advice 2 years ago, many businesses will not take on the risk and jump back in without formally ticking boxes with new advice. The issue here, annoyingly, is compliance-driven and commercial decisions from a business. I just wanted to provide some background as to why businesses and advisors have this approach. I must confess, being in this game for many years, I broadly share the view of many advice businesses who would only engage if there was complex implementation with the costs spread out over, say, 3 or more years. On the ongoing fee, I would only ever recommend my listeners to a business who charge a flat yearly fee, and can structure it in a way that is most tax effective. The ongoing fee, advice fee, where it relates to tax, can now be tax deductible, and the fee that relates to super can also be paid and tax rebated from the super fund. Mm-hmm. The good news is that there is no longer any hidden commissions on investment or superannuation products. Now, I'm honestly not trying to explain how to suck eggs, but your wealth is significant, and I want to make sure you get the right advice. So I'll keep going in.
So just before you do, pick up on one point about fees and the way they're calculated. I think it's important to separate out advice from portfolio management.
Yes.
So advice is largely independent of the size of the pot, and that fits a fixed fee or hourly rate mechanism quite well. Portfolio management is a funds management function, and just as you pay your super fund or Vanguard or BlackRock a percentage of assets under management, that's a funds management function that needs to be paid for that, because the activities of managing $1 million portfolio is actually twice managing a $500,000 portfolio.
Yes.
The brokerage is twice as much, the platform's twice as much, the risk of buying 1,000 PHP instead of 100 is just as much. So that's an ongoing funds management activity. Advice is more either a one-off hourly rate and to be repeated from time to time.
But that's, and this is the thing.
And it's often easier to pay it monthly.
Yeah, and I kind of get into this here, but I just wanted to confirm, yes, he said we have $1 million in term deposits and $700K across our supers, okay? And when he said to me, we're not looking for ongoing advice as such, the financial advisors that we've already consulted insist on paying us a sizable monthly retainer over a 3-year period involved. So there's that. So back to my email to him. Some thought exercises. While we don't need to pay a percentage-based fee to an advisor, it's really handy.
So this is him responding?
No, this is me.
Oh, this is you.
Still to him. While we don't pay a percentage-based fee to an advisor, it's really handy to get our head around the overall percentage cost.
Yes.
Just for zoom out, have a look. I have no idea on the scope a business would charge, but here is an example, and I'll put sit down for this. And, based on, call it $2 million, they probably own their house.
Yep.
Example one-off advice and strategy, $9,500.
Yep.
Example ongoing flat fee, $8,800 per year. Okay. If you
including portfolio management or excluding?
Excluding.
Excluding.
Oh no, it could be including. Sorry.
Okay.
We'll just. This is the thing. It does want ongoing advice, so we will give you the advice, get the implementation sorted and the timing over the next 3 years, even if it's left in Aware Super or ART or whatever, run along your merry way. Okay?
So you're going to pay that to Aware rather than to the advisor?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
So if you had an advisor for the first 3 years, that would be a total of $35,900 based on this. 3 years to help implement it. Based on your cash and super assets of $1.7 million over the 3 years, the total professional service fee would be 2.11% before tax deductions.
Yep.
There could be up to $10K in tax deductions there of that $35K, right? My question is, would you want to sacrifice 2.11% over 3 years to ensure that everything is done and optimized, ensuring every box gets ticked? It could also be worth it if it was 3%. You must step back and not look at the actual number relative to your weekly spending and costs, but in relation to your entire asset pool.
Yes.
generally the more money people have, the more complex, but also the more opportunities for strategy. I don't usually go into much detail with my replies, but I see you've worked hard, saved well, and want to make sure that that you get the most out of your funds going into the future. Does that make sense? So my whole thing was, what's this exorbitant fee that you were quoted, right? And this is now tying back to that we've worked so hard on saving and we get to retirement age, we've got all this money. $1,000 is still a lot of money.
Yeah.
Thanks, Glen, for your comprehensive response to my question. My wife and I really appreciate the time that you obviously devoted to this, and I did. Like this, I did that, I think, on New Year's Day at a cafe because I'm like, I just want to take the time to.
And this is a discussion we have all the time with clients.
But this is similar. Like, if you're a high-income earner in your 40s, it could be $500K household income. You'd light your hair on fire when you get quoted $4,000 for advice. But it's like, you've got to step back and do you want professional help? Yeah. Will you pay for it?
Yeah.
We don't want exorbitant amounts. So he said, and this is where I'm just like, okay, this is the psychology bit. We have a quote. Guess how much they were quoted for the upfront SOA?
10.
5.5. Yeah. And a further $500 per month over 3 years.
So that's basically 10 hours. You're paying for 10 hours work up front and an hour a month.
Basically. And he said the monthly retainer with the $500 accounts for a huge 7.5% of the income that we need over the 3-year implementation period.
What?
Well, their income that they need to live off, they reckon the advisor's $500 per month is 7.5%. So they're in their mind,
$90,000.
Yeah.
Okay,
so in their mind, they're like, we don't want to pay 7.5% for an advisor. So I wrote,
He's probably paying $6,000 to Aware or whoever his super fund is.
I just wrote, thanks for these first-line costs. I don't think I have advisory on my network that would be less than what you have been quoted.
Yeah. I mean, we'd probably be close to that.
Yeah.
But
I'm not going to be like, oh, don't go to where you've been.
Yeah.
Go here to save $300.
No.
Like, you know, I just said the monthly fee is very inexpensive when you zoom out and look at your overall situation. You can't look at it based on the monthly expenses, as the strategy takes into account your entire wealth, not just your spending.
Yeah, because if he is only spending $90,000, he's going to leave most of that money behind.
Yeah. And then I said, and I haven't received a reply yet because I only sent this a couple of days ago. I said, may I ask how long the money has been on term deposits? Was this saved over some time, or was it a business sale or whatnot? And, you know, they're 60, you've been retired for a couple of years. I think it's a sale of a business or maybe a commercial property
Which
for a
could
business.
mean he's lost out on huge amounts of CGT benefits for retirement without any of that. But I mean,
yes, looping it back to the
Evan.
psychology, I'm sorry, I don't live on any planet where getting the right strategic advice implemented over 3 years, because there's some timing things with pensions and getting the money into super. I don't live on a planet where 2% is an exorbitant amount of money based on $1.7 million. That's
right.
gross.
Yeah. But that psychology, which both deals with fees and income, and in the context of Cherie's question, is about I've just worked my entire life and not spent this money as I earned it.
Yeah. You want me to spend $500 a month? Are you freaking serious?
And the mental gymnastic it takes to turn off that saving gene and turn on the spending gene is tricky. And, you know, whilst this is a very popular book, the behaviour of most people doesn't align with that. So I'll give you 2 examples. Lifetime annuities, so it's effectively a guaranteed income for life where you hand over a wad your money today in return for a promise to get backed by the supervision of APRA, so it's pretty secure, to say that no matter how long you live, you will get this amount, this paycheck every month indexed to inflation, regardless how long you and or your surviving
And we might
spouse
even
live.
carve a bit of that off the Centrelink assessment as well.
But very few people, if you say to most retirees, if you take this amount of money and give it to an annuity insurance company in return for a guaranteed lifetime income, most people will go, no, because I want the upside of what happens if I don't spend it all. And similarly, why is reverse mortgages not caught on in Australia? Like, do you need to die owning 100% of your house? Well, Bill would say no.
I mean, sidebar, I'd rather an equity buyout scheme than a reverse mortgage.
Well, regardless of what you call it. I mean, with the no negative equity guarantee, it sort of amounts to the same thing. Really. But either way, the concept of I'm not going to buy an annuity because there'll be nothing left to leave to the Battersea Dogs Home or my kids or grandchildren, and I won't take a reverse mortgage or an equity buyout because I want to leave the house to the kids. That's actually the consequence of that decision or that psychology is that you've spent less during your working life. And that's a really tough mental barrier to get over. So your people will talk about the so-called 4% rule, saying that if I save 25 times my desired spending in retirement, I'll be pretty safe. Well, you could get 4.7 on a lifetime annuity today. The downside is there's nothing left when you die.
So I think it just speaks, because I really care about that retiree listener who did write in, and I get it. Like if this was a couple that have lived quite frugally for many years, earning, might be self-employed, taking home 90, we've worked hard, we've paid off the house, like $500 a month, that would blow your mind.
Yeah, but if you look at what's he going to get out of that? He's going to get one of three initial results. One, you say you want to spend 90. Well, actually, you've got enough money to spend 120. Go fly business class. Or it might be, well, actually, if you're going to live to 95, you might not be able to spend 90, in which case you're now setting expectations. Or it might be, well, actually, you can have 90 and you can leave $500,000 to the Battersea Dogs Home. Just the comfort of knowing that is worth 1 or 2%.
Yeah.
And 1 or 2% sounds wrong.
Yeah.
And $10,000 might seem wrong if you...
But this is the problem, Vince, when you're dealing with such, and I say the word wholesale, not in a professional sense, but just wholesale amounts of money, like serious amounts of money relative to your situation. It would not be uncommon for a DIYer with 1.7 to make a mistake that costs them 20 grand.
Oh, yeah, lots.
Or 20 or 30 or 40
I see
grand.
it all the time.
And that's why I said when I wrote the email to him, I know everyone thinks it's not going to be them and I won't do it, but I wouldn't. If I was the financial advisor, I would not take on a complex once-off advice. Here's your advice that we're giving you. Run along and do it yourself, because what ends up happening, people pay the once-off advice. A year later, what do? They email the advisor. Hey, we need to do this. We need to change that. What do? Look at the advice document. I gave you the advice. Why you're not paying me to?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here? And it happens all the time. Sure, I don't want to pay an ongoing advisor. Awesome. But pay the once-off implementation fee that's going to be spread out over 3 years to make sure that everything's done right.
And then you do still need to come back and revisit it because, parent might die, might have inheritance. They want to give the kids some money to buy a house.
They might want to downsize.
They might want to downsize. They might want to one of them.
And to
one
be
of them
honest,
will
I'm
die.
like, you went to an advice firm that is charging $5,000 for your
That
complexity.
is on the cheap end.
the advice, if you are listening, the advisor, increase your price because you're not making much money. I don't think. And as a business owner, you want to be profitable, not gouging, but I think you're selling yourself short because I know the work involved. Or is that, I mean, it probably doesn't need to be more than that 5K.
Well, it depends on what it is.
I mean, but the thing is, the minute you get in a meeting with these guys, there's going to be more complexities that come out of there because the advisor's going to ask them questions with things they have not considered.
Yeah. And all you do is to divide it by $500 and that tells you how many hours you're buying.
Yeah.
Like it's not rocket science.
Yeah. What do you reckon about the comments where people get outraged in our YouTube comments around advice fees and what advisors getting charged more than advisors charging more than a brain surgeon? Who do they think they are?
Have you ever paid a brain surgeon?
Well, I haven't.
I have, and I can assure you it's a lot more than $500 a year.
An hour.
Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, but it's like, welcome to the commercial world that we actually live in.
You hired a plumber recently?
Man, freaking the costs of car, they don't call them mechanics anymore, Vince. They're technicians. But anyway, we'll be back right after this.
If you're after personal financial advice, don't get it from a podcast. If you would like help based on your own personal situation, head over to retireright.com.au, click Get Help, and we'd be happy to introduce you to one of our trusted professionals. Our panel of vetted financial advisors and mortgage brokers work with people all over Australia, so they can connect with you wherever you are. That's retireright.com.au and click Get Help.
Okay, so just Die with Zero.
Yeah.
This book, we're actually going to put this part around Die with Zero as an episode on Retire Right. It's going to be 25 minutes, this chat. The start of the year, I'm a little bit short on episodes, and I think it's a good discussion for the over 50s to hear about. I popped into good old AI. What are the takeaways from Die with Zero? And it'll be interesting to see if your view, your interpretation after reading the book. The goal is not to die rich. Timing matters more than totals. An experience at 30 is not the same as an experience at 70. Health, energy, curiosity, tolerance for discomfort all decline. Spend while you can enjoy it for most, not when it's safe. Spend intentionally, not recklessly. This is not YOLO finance. Experience beats stuff every time. Memory dividends are real. So, giving money to kids earlier, not later. That's a good one. Like if you're like, I want to leave money to my kids, and even the previous client before, I don't know if it was in there or not. If they had old kids that, when we die, we're going to give, the money to the kids. Carve off a couple $100,000 now. You're not, if you want, you're not in Centrelink's land anyway because you got too much money. The kids need the money now, not when you're dead.
Yeah, I mean that's a difficult one, and much of the writing around this is obviously not written by parents who've got past the young adult independence stage.
Plan to run down your money, which is the depleting capital.
Yeah.
Health is the ultimate asset. Retirement is not a cliff, it's a slope. Fear drives bad money decisions. So,
I mean, that's not a minimize. He actually...
The Die with Zero title...
is a bit clickbaity.
Yeah. I judge that book by its cover.
Yeah, and as they say, you may not be able to judge a book by a cover, but you can tell the price. But he has 9 rules. I don't know why he didn't make it to 10, but 9's the rule. And they broadly say what you said. So maximise your positive life experiences. Start investing in experiences early. So don't wait till you retire to do your bucket list effectively. Aim to die with zero is rule number 3. Rule 4 is use all the available tools to help you die with zero. I'm not quite sure why that's different to rule 3, but there you go. Give money to charity and your children when it has the most impact. And that's where I sort of agree with the point you just made. I'll come back to that. Don't live your life on autopilot, which is the intentional point. Think of your life as distinct seasons, which I think is a good way of describing it. Know when to stop growing your wealth. So know what enough is. and take the biggest risks when you have little to lose.
This Bill Perkins, he's American, isn't he?
He is.
Yeah.
So the point about giving the money to children in charity when it matters, the times that you can make the biggest difference to your kids' lives is when they need to buy a house,
Yeah.
when they get married,
When they
when
have
they're
spawn.
educating kids.
Yeah.
By the time they retire, they've got as much as they'll ever need. So if I look at my situation, so I was 38 when Max was born. So by the time I die, I probably have 30 years to go.
Yeah.
So he's going to be at or close to retirement age by the time I pop my clogs. So giving him the money then isn't going to change his life.
But that's the same. Like my sister and I, we're 40. I'm established. Any money that came in from an inheritance, it's not as if I'm going to, it's all right, cool, I'll buy more property or invest it.
But I think how
more.
you do it matters. To hand over a chunk of change to a 20-year-old who hasn't really got their stuff together, he's probably going to do more harm than good.
100%.
So that's where I would question that. But the life of seasons is good. Know when enough is. I talk about the 3 enoughs when you're trying to decide when to retire. So if you had enough, like is work no longer delivering what you wanted to deliver? 2, do you have enough? So have you got enough money to deliver the life you want? And have you got enough to do? And getting those 3 right's key to it. But the aim to get to zero is really problematic. I'm a big fan of spending money, but you just cannot. The only way you can predict zero is by a lifetime annuity.
Yeah.
And then you still got to.
But you would hope that annuity has a return of capital component if you are putting that much in the annuity, if you did want to look after some of your estate.
Well, legally you can't.
Well, some annuities.
But not once you get past life expectancy.
Right.
So once you get past 88, there can be no capital return.
Right.
Well, sorry, if you want to get the Centrelink treatment.
No, sorry. I'm thinking if you're in a league of wealth where Centrelink is just nowhere near the radar and you did want to leave some money to your kids regardless.
You probably wouldn't be annuitising. You probably wouldn't
put it all into the annuity.
You might do enough to pay for your. So if you take someone who wants $100,000 a year, they would need what's 4.7%? It's 4.7 million, isn't it?
What do you want me to do?
What is 100,000 4.7% of?
What is?
It's 4.7 million, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, 2.5 million.
2.12 million.
Yeah.
Or 2.1.
Yeah.
We'll
So if you had $2.1 million at age 60, you and your 60-year-old spouse, assuming you're a 2-sex couple.
And are you assuming that we own the house?
Well, let's assume we do.
Also, net worth 2.1 or house plus 2.1?
House plus 2.1.
Yeah.
That will get you $100,000 indexed to inflation for the length of your life and your surviving spouse.
So money's not your problem.
So now you don't have a money problem.
I mean, the Grattan stuff, I don't 100% agree with it, but I think there is a place for annuities more than what a lot of people know.
And the reason I mention the 4.7 is because it's more than 4. And so most people running around to the internet going, 4% rule, which is actually an observation, not a rule, but let's set that aside for today. So that's based on saying that you should be able to draw 4% over 30 years indexed to inflation with a very, very high degree of confidence. Because it's never not worked in the past.
Yeah. I just think die with zero. No, don't. Because one, you might wake up dead tomorrow. Someone commented on that when I say that on YouTube, like, lol, wake up dead. Yeah, I know, it's
Lol.
funny. You could die tomorrow.
You could.
Number two, so how old are you now, Vince? I don't want to presume.
63.
You're 63. I hypothesize that every year you get closer to even age 100 or even age 90, you have a high chance of having a medical event. Just throwing it out there.
Yep.
We just want to make sure that you do have some options and dignity in your back pocket, aka cash, if there are medical events.
Yeah.
Does old mate talk about a reserve just in case?
Well, he's American, of course, where healthcare is a huge deal.
And they sell the long-term care insurance.
Yeah, long-term care. So he does talk about long-term care.
okay.
He does talk about annuities. So he's heading in the right direction. And the reason I mentioned the 4.7% annuity rate today is his comment around the so-called 4% rule is that that's too generous. That is, you're not going to spend enough. I disagree with that, but that's the answer. So he said, well, rather than doing that, what you should do is take the number of years you plan on live and multiply that by your annual spending in today's dollars, and then times the answer by 0.7. Which, if you plan a 30-year retirement, coincidentally gets you back to would get you to 2.1 million through that $100,000, and that's actually that's about the annuity rate. So, but you can't predict it zero because if you could live to 110, 105. In fact, if you take a couple age 60 today, there's a 1 in 4 chance that one or other will make it to 95.
Yeah. I just think...
quote, guys, is more than 30 years.
Yes. And I go back to my, comments. The exact amount of money that you need for retirement is as much as possible relative to your situation.
Well, I mean, that's sort of true.
But how is it wrong?
Well, every dollar you spend in retirement is a dollar you didn't spend during your working life.
No.
Ignoring the time value of money.
Thank you.
But you, in order to have...
Because just to jump in there for people, I could invest 50% now and then in retirement, that's worth $1.
Yeah, sure. But money spent in retirement comes from money you didn't spend during your working life.
100%. But that's the dance, as much as possible.
Yeah, but what does possible mean? Does it mean that you buy less house? Does it mean you don't send your kids to private school? Does it mean you don't travel when you're in your 20s?
I think it means you literally, like I say in my first book, Sort Your Money Out, it's one eye on today, one eye on the future.
Yeah, sure.
Like that's all you can do. You need to live life now, be aware that, I earn $90,000 a year. I'm not going to buy a $90,000 car brand new.
Sure.
That's actually considered dumb,
yes,
I think. So I think it is that one eye on today, one eye on the future.
But there is a trade-off to be made here. The more luxurious retirement you need, the less luxurious living you can do.
Yes. But I raise you, young man, this is the problem, and it's a good problem. Most people walking around now with super, and this couple with their assets, they've got more because of the super return of 12% now for the next generation. People are going to be better off in retirement without doing anything.
So if you earn less than $60,000 today, you will be way better off in retirement.
Yeah.
Because of compulsory super. So there's an argument that for lower income earners, 12% isn't enough, and for higher income earners, for lower income earners, 12% is too much. And for higher income earners, it's not enough. And that's where good financial advice comes in early on. And Bill sort of gets this point, though. He talks about, take your biggest risks when you've got little to lose. So start that business when you're 20. Go take that year overseas. Go do some traveling. Try doing something new. And know when enough is enough.
Yeah.
Getting the mental picture of Die with Zero is sort of a useful way of going, you save this money, now actually start spending it.
Yeah.
And don't die with all of it intact. But to die with zero, and that's why the old financial planning joke of the undertaker's check bouncing is actually just that.
I can tell you now, if you do your financial planning with, we want 80 grand a year in retirement and we don't want our capital be depleted, it's going to be hard to get there.
That's a lot of money.
Then we want 80 grand a year in retirement and we're happy to deplete our capital.
Yeah.
So, all right, we'll leave it there on Die with Zero.
Any advice is general financial advice only, which does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Because of that, you should consider if the advice is appropriate to you and your needs before acting on the information. If you do choose to buy a financial product, read the Product Disclosure Statement, PDS, and Target Market Determination, TMD, and obtain appropriate financial advice tailored to your needs. Simo Interactive, Pty Ltd, and Glen James are authorised representatives of Money Sherpa Pty Ltd, which holds Financial Services Licence 451289. Martin McGrath, Financial Edge Group, and its employed financial advisors are authorised representatives of Synchron Advice, AFSL 243313. Opinions or comments from any guests on the podcast are theirs, and not those of the hosts, the publisher, or their respective licence holders.